Can you believe we are 6 months into 2024? When you think about it, July is the beginning of July, especially, I think is when we get into this siesta of summer mode. You're really thinking about like recharging before you really move into the second half of a year. Kids are out of school, family and friends start, making plans to gather. Flowers are in bloom. That's something I love, as you well know. I love flowers, I love nature. And you can really enjoy those things, those great gifts of God in the summer. And of course, another great gift of God, sunlight. We have additional hours of sunlight in summer, gives us so much more time to spend with our family, with our friends, with fellow believers, and of course, in the world we live in today, to reach across the globe through social media and gather with other believers and other people who are praying online. It is a wonderful time to be on earth, but also part of the kingdom of heaven. Summer has always kind of been a special time. I know when I was a kid, a lot of traveling by air, by train, by automobile, but one of my favorites used to be like road trips to Texas. To this day, it's still like a big deal just thinking about Texas. We always have this summer road trip. And of course, road trips to New York. It was always just a special and a specific time. But I think in this season, we're grown up now, supposedly, and grown up challenges face us. And a lot of us are facing challenges that are more difficult and possibly more frequent than ever before. So, how do we recharge when we are facing, like unrelenting pressure, attacks, chaos? It may be tempting just to take a ramp that looks like an exit, anything to escape the pain. I don't know about you, but if you ever sat in traffic and you're trying to get somewhere and you begin to get frustrated and you start just looking for any exit, a side street, an exit ramp, it doesn't even matter if it's in line with where you initially planned to go. You just want to get out of the traffic. Want to get out of the chaos. Any exit will do. And that can be a very dangerous mindset to get into. When I woke up today, it was still kind of dawn, dark outside. And I started thinking, I don't know why, but I started thinking about Moses and more specifically, his mother. And like I started reading Exodus, and in my mind, I just had this image of this mother putting this little 3-month-old baby on the Nile River in a basket. Can you imagine that? What would happen today if a mother was found doing this? And there was a lot of pain and chaos at that time when she did this. They were killing newborns, and she had a newborn, Moses, who would one day, of course, as we know, lead the greatest exodus known to man. And so the more I meditated on it, the more I realized how easy it is for us to confuse an exit with an exodus. And what do I mean by that? An exodus is not a mere exit. It's not just this little escape or a temporary thing just to get us out of a fix. You know how that goes. I just don't want to sit in traffic anymore. An exodus is a God move in God's timing, according to God's plan for God's purpose and to fulfill God's promises. One of the things we really need to understand in this hour is the difference between Exodus and an exit. An exit is basically departing. I mean, to put it simply, there might be many other meanings, but the fundamental meaning of exit is to depart. You can literally go to any transportation hub, trains, planes, automobiles, and you will see an exit sign for anyone with a ticket to depart, right? So we can exit anything at any time, whether it's a good or a bad exit. That's a free will action. And some people have made some badly timed exits and harmed themselves. You know, the elders, when I was growing up, would tell you and warn us, don't jump from the frying pan into the fire. Basically, don't just make these exits because you don't know where you're going to end up. A person can make multiple exits and still be oppressed and stuck and hurting with no healing, no remedy in sight. An exodus, on the other hand, is not like this panicked, random, reactive, thoughtless human action. When we look at the etymology of the word exodus, it's a military expedition. So it's strategic. It's a solemn procession. It's sacred. It's a way, it's a path, it's a road, it's a migration, a change of abode. It's liberation. And as we go into the second half of 2024, we have the choice of how we're going to spend our time. We can kind of sit around, start panicking, try to make our own way and find the next exit, or we can trust God's exodus, just as the children of Joseph, the offspring of Jacob, eventually had to do. Their exodus began when a new king arose in Egypt, someone who did not have a relationship with Joseph, someone who never knew him. And that new king started to increase their suffering, right? He started to increase the suffering on the offspring of Jacob. He started using affliction and using cruelty, started using oppression and other methods of inflicting pain, including killing male newborns. That sort of sounds familiar, right? When Jesus was coming. So you get it. It was a high level of affliction and pain and oppression happening. But that exodus began before Moses was even born. So while the people could not even imagine a way out or see like a path to freedom or find a road to redemption, God was already moving on their behalf. And we have to consider that. Are you facing like any situation, any attack, something where I'm under attack, I'm under pressure, and I am desperately just looking for an exit. I just want a way out. I don't care which way it is. We've got to be careful when we start thinking like that. Because before I started thinking about this, and one of the verses that came up to me was in Micah 2:13, where it says, the Lord is the breaker. He is the one who goes ahead of us. He is the one that makes it possible for us to break out and to go through whatever the hindrance may be. That is not just getting an exit. That's having the leader of an exodus. The Lord has the strategy. The Lord has the divine power. He is the way maker. So if you believe that God is already in the second half of 2024, and he is already working on your behalf, don't make any panicked or reactive or random or thoughtless moves, even if you're under attack, even if you're feeling that pressure. God will not forsake you on any part of your journey. Go back and read Psalm 139. This promise that he has given us in his word is that he will always be with us from before he spoke us into existence until he receives us to glory. His presence is always with us. So be very careful, even when you're under pressure, not to just take an exit or to look for just the next escape route, Know that the God of the Exodus is available to you. He's ahead of you. He's the breaker. He's working for you. He's working to bring you through. He's working to get the promises, to get you to the promises. The promise is already ahead. God will not forsake you on any part of your journey. So be still and trust him. Shalom, shalom. Remember, the Lord himself goes ahead of you. The Lord himself is your victory. The Lord himself is the breaker that brings the breakthrough. The Lord himself is the Exodus, and the Exodus is the divine move. So be still and know that he is God. Be blessed.